President Biden's stimulus package is before the Senate now, with hopes for bipartisan support waning. We welcome now Republican Senator from Alaska, Dan Sullivan. So, Senator, thank you so much for being with us. Is there any
Great
chance
to be on the show, David? Thanks.
Is there any chance of any Republicans voting for this?
Well, look, I'm actually still reading it. You know, some of us actually do that job and review and read. Our staffs are digging into it. It's a big bill. And, you know, I think and there's some good things in there. There's no doubt about it. But I think the biggest concern that we have on the Republican side right now is that within the past year, we have actually passed 5 very bipartisan COVID relief bills totaling about $4 trillion. The last one was just in December, $900 billion. And one of the big problems here is, and all of those got 80 senators or more. So that was the model when we were in power. The problem with this has been a challenge is that, unfortunately, the Biden administration, Chuck Schumer, have decided they're going to go purely partisan. There's been no Republican input on this. This really breaks the mold of what we thought was a good model of bipartisan COVID relief. And as you know, close to $2 trillion, that is a lot of money. That's almost as big as the original CARES Act in March. So again, I'm digging into it myself, but these are some of the big concerns that we have. These need to be bipartisan bills with input on both sides of the aisle. That's what we've been doing for the last year. Unfortunately, this breaks that model, and I don't think that's a good start for the Biden administration.
So, Senator, I understand that, but put that together with something else, which is the state of the economy, and particularly in Alaska, because I heard you on the floor of the Senate speaking fairly eloquently about the difficulties up in Alaska. Do your constituents up in Alaska say, we need this money, Senator?
Well, look, there's no doubt that my economy, the state of the Alaska economy, because of the pandemic, is very challenged, whether it's on the tourism sector, whether it's on the energy sector. So there's no doubt we can use more relief. But I would say, David, from the perspective of Alaska, a lot of what's happening with regard to the government itself in terms of policies is as much, if not more, of a concern. The tourism sector right now, the CDC has been very slow in terms of its ability to provide guidance, for example, on cruise ships. That's a huge part of the Alaska tourism sector. And even more concerningly, we have the Biden administration coming out literally on day one and targeting the energy sector in my state, throughout the country. And as you know, in the 08 and 09 recession, the driver of our recovery was the U.S. energy sector, capital formation, GDP growth, job growth. It was driven by the energy sector. The irony here is the Biden administration is talking a lot about the need for COVID relief, particularly as it relates to unemployment, and at the same time they are targeting for destruction the very jobs that we think are critical to Alaska and the U.S. economy. That's the jobs in the energy sector. They have a plan that makes no sense, constricting the production of American energy, which will only lead to more imports of energy from Russia, Venezuela, and it kills American jobs, great jobs, by the way, with no replacement. So to me, my biggest concern right now for the economy in Alaska is government policies that are targeting the very jobs that we need during a recession.
So, Senator, we do know and appreciate, I think, how important tourism and particularly energy are to your state of Alaska. President Biden, beg your pardon, says, no, this could be a job creator because as we shut down some of the fossil fuel jobs, we're going to have a lot of renewable jobs. Is that true in Alaska? What about that? He thinks this is a job creator, not a destroyer.
Look, I'm the classic senator who believes in all of the above energy. And we have all of the above energy in Alaska. Renewables, hydro, wind, oil, gas. That's what we need to focus on. But, you know, I spent a lot of time talking to our labor leaders, particularly the building trades, the men and women in America who build things. And when you talk to them, they can't believe hearing from John Kerry and others about, you know, how these renewable jobs are A, plentiful, and B, are going to replace them. We can build on these jobs, but to say that when you have a North Slope oil and gas job on Alaska's North Slope, strong, solid, middle-class wages, that somehow that's going to be replaced by a green job, they don't have answers for that. And I'll tell you one more thing, David, which my constituents, these great union members that I'm talking to, they notice there's also a condescending element here of what's going on. You hear John Kerry and even some of my colleagues in the Senate talk about, well, we're going to help Americans make better choices for their jobs. They're going to have relevant jobs. Unfortunately, they say some jobs need to be sacrificed. You know, the men and women who build this country, who produce American energy, until very recently were celebrated as playing a key role in our economy, in what makes our country strong. And I think this condescension in terms of discussing better jobs in this sector when they're not better jobs, to me, is very problematic.
I wonder if there's one point of intersection that you might agree or tend to agree with the Biden administration on, and that's conservation. Because I certainly think of Alaskans as being very aware of the environment and of the land that they have and that they're entrusted with. Are you sympathetic to that? And let me give you a specific example. We have Gary Gensler right now testifying in his confirmation hearing to be head of the SEC. One of the questions is, should we be requiring companies to disclose in their statements, in their financials, the future costs of climate, of their generating greenhouse gases? Are you sympathetic to that sort of initiative?
Well, look, nobody cares about the environment in Alaska more than Alaskans. I used to be in charge of the energy sector. I was the Commissioner of Natural Resources and Energy. We have the highest standards on environmental protection of any place, not just in America, in the world. When you produce American energy in Alaska, you are doing it with the highest standards. Again, what the Biden administration is looking at doing is restricting production in the jurisdictions like my state that have the highest standards. The result, you import more from places like Russia that have no standards. So the overall global environment in this regard actually gets degraded when you move away from American production to production overseas, Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, you name it. The other issue that's also missed, even with regard to greenhouse gas emissions, from 2005 to 2017, the United States reduced greenhouse gas emissions by almost 15%, more than any other major economy in the world by far. China is still going through the roof in terms of emissions. That happened because of the energy revolution in America. So Alaskans care more about our environment conservation than any other Americans, especially as it relates to our state. But the key is, and we proved it time and again in Alaska, you can protect the environment, you can care about conservation, and you can still protect American energy, produce it, and create the good-paying jobs that we need in our country so desperately.
Senator, great to get the perspective of Alaska. Thank you so much for bringing it to us. That's Senator Dan Sullivan, Republican of Alaska.